Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
So let's break it down, everybody. Donald Trump is heading back to the White House after winning a decisive victory over Kamala Harris last night.
This was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal.
Well, It was just a stunning political comeback and a historic night. Trump is the first ever president to serve as a convicted felon. So let's break down our reactions to this. I think a lot of people still processing. What was your thought, Capri?
Well, first of all, I think I'm still tired. I think many of us are still, processing from last night. But, I think that the American people have sent a very clear message. And one of the things I think that has happened as I reflect upon last night's results is that there are sectors of the American electorate that I think that they've been taken for granted. And there's been assumptions that certain groups, whether it's women, African Americans, people of color, Hispanic, Latino Americans, that they're going to vote a certain way. And what we have learned in last night's election results is that is absolutely not the case. There is no group that is a monolith. And I think that, the Democratic Party in particular has to recalibrate and really reflect upon, what they can do to reconnect. Because, we also, I think, have seen that the American public is angry. They're angry. They feel like their voice isn't being heard. And they feel like Donald Trump is the one person, and his movement is the one movement that is reflecting the frustration and the anger that they have. The question that we have to answer as Americans is, why are we so angry? Where is that coming from? And if we can find the origin of where that anger is coming from, maybe we can find a path forward to being able to, come together again as a nation rather than be as divided as we are.
Wow. That's a really interesting take. I was not surprised by last night's results.
Me either.
I'm going to be very honest, a little disappointed, but not surprised. I watch a lot of U.S. news on a regular basis, but what I noticed in the last year is that in battleground states, the middle where Donald Trump won the majority, a lot of the correspondents from different news outlets have gone to those towns that have populations that are as small as 5,000 and as big as 2.5 million. And they would go to all the greasy spoons and all the bars, and they would talk to the people, the voters. And the one thing that they all said was a resounding message was, we liked the country more. We felt safer, and we felt like the country was in a better position financially, and we want to go back to that. Of course, they did not mention things like the pandemic, and some of the things that they liked were things that Obama had done, but, research, it wasn't a lot of research done, but it was an overwhelming, everybody seemed to be reading from the same script, no matter what town they were in. And what was most surprising is, you expect to hear that from a certain demographic, but we were hearing that was being heard from Black, white, young, old, rich and poor. And I was watching that ever since he announced that he was running again in this election. I'm like, okay, this is overwhelming. Everybody's feeling the same. And I feel like, that slogan that he coined in 2015, Make America Great Again? It's a great slogan because people remember it.
Well, now he can fix it.
And
now that's his slogan.
Make America Great Again. But here's the deal. I think he made that popular, but I think this time going back into the White House, he's going to make good on that promise. And depending on who you are, whether you're gay, straight, rich, poor, black, white, either you're really excited about that or you're absolutely terrified. I don't think there's any middle ground with the results of this election.
I mean, I think most people, well, maybe not you. I was not surprised. I went to bed early last night as I was like, I'm done. I could see the way that things were turning. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I'm not gonna do what I did last time, which was when the 2016 election, I did turn on my phone and I saw what had happened and I was like, I'm not doing that. So I waited until this morning, found out, and I wasn't surprised, but I was a little disappointed. But I agree with you, Capri. I think this is, for me, I take this as less of a collective loving Trump and more of a collective of people rejecting the Biden-Harris administration. And I think what Democrats maybe failed to do was to read the tea leaves in advance and see that this could be a change election. Biden should have stepped aside, I think, a lot earlier. And I think that there was this assumption when they made this, they weren't listening to the people to say, like, people are dissatisfied. The economy is terrible. Or even though people are saying, oh, the economy is better, people don't feel that. People are feeling like they're struggling. And I think if this administration had actually looked a little bit deeper and maybe presented another candidate completely, or at least let Harris have a bit more runway to for people to get to know her, for people to understand what she was all about, they might have had a better chance. But I think they relied heavily on the assumption that, again, women would predominantly vote for her, that people of color would predominantly vote for her, that the abortion issue was going to make, this galvanizing moment. And they were wrong. They were wrong, because ultimately I think what people are saying is that we're struggling, we're scared, and we need a change. And so I don't think, again, the part of me that's heartened is I don't think it's about like, yay, we love Trump. I'm making that assumption. They're not saying that. I think they were just saying we can't have more of the same. We need something different. I hope that it isn't a gazillion times worse.
Yeah, it's true. Listen, I think it's okay to say that I'm sad and I'm really downtrodden today. My daughter was up watching as late as we would let her stay up with us watching last night. And we finally said, honey, you got to go to bed. And she said, okay. And I put her to bed. And the last thing she said to me was, Mommy, will you wake me up if Kamala wins? And I said, absolutely, I will wake you up if Kamala wins. And so I come at this today, even though I'm a diehard political head, both American and Canadian politics. And this was an opportunity I had hoped for her at this young age to see finally the fist go through that glass ceiling. So as a mom of a daughter, I had so much riding on this as a Canadian, because if the Americans can do it, then maybe finally in Canada we could elect a female prime minister in the near future as well. So Kamala was a figurehead in our family for something much bigger than American politics. It was for possibility. It was for hope. It was for, saying to girls, finally, you can actually be anything you want to be. And here's the proof, not just this. So when I heard my daughter wake up this morning, I was actually working out because I had to work out my stress. And I ran upstairs and her dad got to tell her first. She was really sad, but you know what? She was more mad. And that's when I said, you know what? That glimmer in your eye, this is precisely the moment when I thought, I felt this when Hillary lost. I felt this last night with Kamala's loss. The future first female elected president or prime minister is the same little girl or young woman who watched Hillary or maybe watched Kamala last night, who will be the future first. It might be my daughter. It might be my daughter. It might be your daughter. So from hardship, this is when you watch and look forward, and from this, positive will come.
I like that positive spin. I like that.
So Donald Trump has been called a strong man, someone with an authoritarian style, which he never tried to hide. Some say that wider anti-feminist backlash helped propel Trump to victory, which leaves us with another pressing question today. What do we think this Trump victory says about women's place in this election?
Ooh, this is a big one. Oh, where do we even begin with this, right? I think sometimes I saw a good friend post something earlier today saying sometimes like when everyone's going to write a think piece about like why Trump won and why Kamala lost, she's like, maybe the most simple answer is the best answer, which is it was a man versus a woman. That's definitely part of this. Maybe it's not all of the discussion, but I think we have to consider that. But I also think that the strong man is the thing about this that really hones in on this, because I think it was Chris Cuomo who actually posted this video ages ago, and he said, I think we make the mistake believing that Trump followers are like Trump. He says, no, that's actually the wrong thing. They are voting somebody in who is dirty, brash, racist, misogynist, not because they are or they believe that, but because they want that kind of guy in the White House because it's a dirty job up against a lot of other dirty guys around the world. That strongman theory makes sense to me, because it would be like me getting a beautiful new house and a white picket fence. What kind of dog do I want in the front yard? I don't want a little Chihuahua. No offense if you have a Chihuahua. I have a Doberman. I want Rottweilers. I want a pit bull. I want somebody, maybe, to come in and who's going to protect us. There are wars around the world right now, and you have scary characters.
Except that he's like, he's befriending them.
but
Like
that's
bad
the
guy.
point.
He's bad guy. He's kissing their butts. If we want to keep with the analogy of the dogs.
No, but that's exactly why. You need a dog in the dog fight, and you're not going to put a Chihuahua in against another pit bull.
But when he's in that dog fight, he bows down and becomes a Chihuahua when he's next to those big dogs, and that's the problem.
Well, we'll see.
Keeping it real. I kind of see what you're saying there, Mel, because, you know, I think that there is something to be said for the fact that, you know, as I was saying earlier about the anger that people feel and the frustration that they feel. And I think that Donald Trump's strongman persona and Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock and all the people that we saw at the Republican convention over the summer, I think that it's sending this, I think maybe people feel, maybe subconsciously, that it's sending this message out into the universe that we're down, but we're not out. Don't mess with us. And, you know, people may feel like, you know, again, they're not being heard, that maybe, you know, the economy isn't as good, but with this external force. And I think, you know, you can't have this conversation without talking a little bit about the manosphere that has evolved, that has really, you know, come about in the last few years, the Joe Rogan experience, and even the hashtag tradwives stuff. There's something else going on in popular culture and in social media that is ginning up this sense of trying to recalibrate the roles, gender roles, and who we are, you know, and as a nation, and what our personality is.
I was reflecting, as I'm sure many people were, that two women tried to go against this same man, right? And like, it's the only time two very smart, powerful, intelligent women. They lost
different generations, different
very
paths.
much so.
Yeah.
But again, all connected to, in a way, a particular democratic vision. They are all interconnected to something that I think people are a little tired of. I don't know. For me, I think we overestimated women coming together, like I said earlier. There was this idea that women would all feel the same kind of rage towards Trump for his history, for the fact that he's a rapist, ostensibly, how all of the things that he's done against women's rights. They thought that that would be the thing, and they were wrong. And I think they also underestimated younger voters who were mad at Kamala. I mean, I was following it. This is anecdotal, but I think a lot of them were still mad at Kamala. I'm not saying that they then voted for Trump. I just think they either didn't vote at all or they voted for someone else.
What were they mad at Kamala for, though?
Because they felt that the Biden administration, that she's complicit in the Biden administration and the way in which they aren't being aggressive in issues in the Middle East. That's what many young voters are feeling like.
Or climate.
Or climate, exactly. That they're complicit in upholding certain things.
Or guns,
That's right, all of that.
That's very interesting. Listen, I want to quote James Brown, was like, this is a man's world and nothing has changed. And this race to me really just illustrated that, you know what, you can be, and this is, I'm glad you said what you said about your daughter, because it kind of gave me a different vision of it, because I felt like if I had a daughter today, I don't know what I would say to her. Because I look at a woman like Kamala Harris, who's made all the right decisions, worked really, really hard, and kept her nose clean. And she was in a fight up against somebody who's a senior citizen Nepo baby who's been racist. He's racist. His list of things, you got to staple it to the paper, because there's such a long list of all the horrible things he's done. And still, they were neck and neck. So I'm like, what do I tell a young woman? Or how do I tell her, go to college, work hard. It's all going to pay off. When we watched this race and she did all the right things. And it still did not pay off. So I just feel like we're still in that fight. We still have to fight.
Can I just say one really quick thing? As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about 2016 versus 2024. And I think a number of people at the time in 2016 thought, well, you know, Donald Trump, he's not a career politician, but once he understands the enormity of the White House and becoming president of the United States and the nuclear codes and all this stuff, it's gonna change him. What happened is he changed politics. He changed the game of how you govern. He changed the game of what became norms, as you talked about, the stapled list of all of the things about Donald Trump. One of those things 8 years ago would have been disqualifying. Now, you know, the government didn't change him, the process didn't change him, he changed it into his own life.
And also what's frustrating is we know that if Kamala was accused of just a fraction of the things he's been accused of, she wouldn't even have a chance to be in politics. We'd be laughing, being like, this woman's out of her mind, there's no way. But there he is.
I think that's the harsh reality maybe that I'm grappling with today is us, we, them, we think we're so far ahead in
We think we've made strides.
But I don't think we have.
No, not even close.
Doesn't mean going to stop fighting. But
That's right.
Yeah.
anyway. Last night wasn't the only deja vu we experienced. On Google, searches for how to move to Canada surged again as votes were being counted, and memes featuring our beautiful landscapes and also jokes about our cold weather. It's trending alongside serious concerns about what a Trump presidency means for us here in Canada. Okay, so how do we think this will impact us here?
First, can I say this? Because I was guilty of saying this all the time, where I'm like, that's their circus. We don't have to deal with that. Thank goodness we live in Canada. We don't have to, we should ignore that. If you're thinking that way, get that out of your head. We need to pay very close attention because what's happening over there is definitely going to affect us over here. And there are two things that we should be paying very close attention to. First one is tariffs. First of all, Donald Trump does not like our prime minister, and he's not been quiet about it. And he has promised to add a 10% or higher tariff to all goods made in Canada that are imported to the United States. So what that means is it's going to become more expensive, which is going to drive down demand. So if you are a Canadian company, this win for Trump is detrimental to your business. So that's one thing we should be thinking about.
He floated that idea, by the way, back in 2018, 2019 as well.
Exactly. So, and then the other thing is migration. One of the number one things that the Republicans talked about and campaigned on was all of the illegal and undocumented people. And he promised that in his first week, what's he going to do? He's going to deport the 11 million undocumented people who are in the United States. Well, this is not like the end of a baseball game where everybody just kind of slowly walks home. It's like, where are those people going to go? We share a landmass and an invisible line. So most likely we're going to absorb all of those people. And I have to ask our government right now, do we have a plan in place? What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? We cannot sit on our hands and expect those people are going to go somewhere else. A lot of them are going to be seeking refuge here. And I need to know, please, Prime Minister, say something about, like, what are we going to do with that?
Well,
so those are the things we need to
you're
discuss.
absolutely right. But to piggyback off of that, I often say this, and a lot of people are quoting me today, America sneezes and Canada catches a cold.
Yeah. Oh.
So this is not just now an economic thing that we're going to be inevitably dealing with. Our NAFTA, or it's called the CUSMA now.
USMCA.
That is going to be expiring in 2026. And if anybody recalls what those negotiations were like last time, it was nasty and dirty. So economically, there's a price to pay here. But also, when I say America sneezes and Canada catches a cold, I feel that more in a sentiment, that there's a sentiment that gets unleashed and normalized in the States that all of a sudden flows up here. They sneeze, we get a freedom convoy. You know, this is what I'm saying, is that there is a sentiment. So now, if you have people who will want to leave because they're fearing for their family and getting deported, and they want to come up here because they believe Canada is a safe haven, there is an increasing anti-immigrant sentiment growing in this very country. We have to be careful that thinking does not bleed over in a toxic way to us. We have to retain our identity.
I think it is.
You know, it absolutely is. But what I'm saying is that's where it comes up
You
against
have
what's
an opportunity, though, I think. You have an opportunity, if you start now, to listen to one another in a way that I think we in the United States have not done. Because I agree with you, there is a growing anti-immigrant sentiment. I mean, you have, and then you have the folks that are worried about the carbon tax, in Alberta. I mean, you have all of these different, things that are very similarly mirroring, just like the Freedom Convoy. Unlike the United States, though, you all can have a snap election. So, if the PQ and the NDP decide that they're going to not have a vote of confidence in a minority government, guess what? You guys are going to have an election like ASAP. So start talking to your neighbors now about where are these sentiments coming from? Is it just a reflection of what's happening in the United States, or is there really something larger going on here in Canada?
Yeah, great question. Listen, Capri, first of all, I want to say you did amazing coverage yesterday. I was watching you, did a fantastic job. And as an American and a political analyst, I'm just really curious. Can you give us a positive spin, a little bit of optimism for the people who are maybe feeling a little down today as we look into the future?
Well, I would say this, that the American public has made their decision. It's very clear. It is indisputable. Donald Trump won both the Electoral College and the popular vote, something that a Republican has not done in 20 years. So we now have a very clear understanding, at least, of where the United States wants to go, where the majority of Americans want to be. So, the concerns about civil unrest or, whether or not there is going to be a peaceful transfer of power, these kind of things are off the table now. So now I think, the conversations need to begin on how we can start to rebuild a healthy and positive dialogue. And I think, again, if we can start to be introspective, have those healthy conversations, we can become a stronger and more united states again, and a good partner and ally to Canada and to the rest of our traditional allies. So my hope, at least, is that, whether you wanted that, outcome or not, it is undeniable. The message was sent, and I think the message was received on the other side. Message was sent by the Trump supporters, and I think received by the Democrats and the Harris supporters that, okay, we obviously have work to do.
We have work to do here too. I mean, just to go back to what you were saying before, this is also, I think everyone knows, our election will be a change election. And I think that similar sentiments are there where people just want different. People are having a hard time. But is the option right now, is it the best option? Does it represent our values? I don't know. Is the person who is at the helm of the same right now, meaning our current prime minister, is he the best person to represent change? I don't think so, but will he step aside, as people have maybe suggested, and let another leader emerge? I don't know. These are all questions that we should be thinking about and asking ourselves about what we want the vision of this country to look like as well.
I'll end this where I started, which was with my daughter. There's a meme going around online today, and it's a cartoon of a little girl looking up and talking to her mom, and she says, "Oh, Mom, what if they lose?" And she says, "Well, we keep on fighting for the rights of all people." And then the daughter says, "Well, Mommy, what if they win?" And she says, "Oh, dear, the answer is still the same." That's where we leave that.
I love that.
So, Capri, we love your perspective as always.
you.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank you for
today.
having me on this very important day.
Yeah, really big, really, really big.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.